All right, 6 o'clock. Should we get going?
Yes, we can do
Let's
that.
do it.
All right. I'm going to call the Beach Safety Committee meeting together now, January 21st, 2021. And I'm going to add a item 1A here just so we can get a head count. If Kate, if you'll do a roll call.
Sure. Chris Campbell,
Here.
Cam Doherty. Cam Doherty,
She's muted.
yes. I'm not sure if she can hear us. Cam, if you can hear us, can you unmute yourself? I see she's here. Tom Renner? Let's see if this is the right Tom.
There, can you hear me now?
Can you hear you there?
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Sean Russell?
Here.
Okay. Tom Stegman?
Present.
Thank you. Randy Timmer?
You can hear me. I can't hear anything.
Okay, we can hear you now, Cam.
Let me go off of my earbuds and see if that helps.
Okay. Randy Timmer?
Here.
Okay, and Randy Van Wyden.
Here.
Okay. All present, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. And just to start off, want to welcome everybody that's on the committee as well as everybody listening in. Thank you for taking the time to attend this second meeting. And just a little announcement to start out. I think we'll set a time limit of about 2 hours. And my goal tonight is for this group to at least get through item 5A by 7:30. And then no matter what, if we go as long as 7:30, when that time rolls around, wherever we're at on the agenda, I'll move into items 6 through 10, which is the public comment, correspondence, next steps. That way we have a little time and we don't go over this 2-hour limit. Sound good? All right. So next up, we'll do approval of the agenda. I'll look for a motion and second from the committee members.
I'll move we approve the minutes and agenda.
A second.
Second.
Renner.
And who's support?
Van Wynen.
Van Wynen. Okay. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none. Kate, do we want to do roll call or show of hands for this type of motion going forward?
I see at least Randy doesn't have his video on, so if we could just maybe do a roll call, that might be pretty good. So we'll
Okay.
go, Cam,
Yes.
Tom Renner,
Yes.
Sean Russell,
Yes.
Tom Stegman,
Yes.
Randy Timmer,
Yes.
Randy Van Wynen,
Yes.
Chris Campbell.
Yes.
All approved?
Okay. Next item is 3, the approval of the minutes. I assume everybody had a chance to read through the minutes. Entertain a motion for that as well.
Just
Make a
a
motion.
quick note, Kate, I meant to text you earlier. We've got Sean's name wrong in the minutes, just FYI for going forward.
Okay, was it John?
Yes.
Okay, I tried to, the clerk didn't see the name, so I'll make sure that the Sean gets changed from John, so we'll make that correction.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And then
I'll
Cam,
make a motion to approve the minutes then.
thanks, Chris.
Is there support?
I'll second.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Okay, Tom Renner,
Yes.
Sean Russell,
Yes.
Tom Stegman,
Yes.
Randy Timmer,
Yes.
Randy Van Wynen,
Yes.
Chris Campbell,
Yes.
Pam Doherty,
Yes.
all approved.
Okay. Moving on to item 4, we have an update from Pam Ford of Safe Kids of South Haven on education efforts, and the committee will give her about 10 minutes. And Kate, do you have any further introduction on this?
I just want to introduce Pam Ford, who works with Safe Kids of Greater South Haven of Bronson. And Pam's been doing a lot of information and education around the area on doing Safe Kids. And I guess I'll turn it over to Pam. And Pam, I can make sure that if you want, I can see if I can share your screen.
Okay. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. And I've made you a co-host, Pam, so if you want to go ahead and try sharing your screen.
Very good. All good?
Yep.
So 10 minutes is a very short amount of time, so here we go. Bear with me. Pam Ford, Greater South Haven, Safe Kids Greater South Haven. I have a master's degree in education, and I am a child passenger safety technician instructor. My lead agency is Bronson South Haven, and I am housed at the Bronson Wellness Center. Safe Kids has identified the following focus areas for the Greater South Haven area, which include South Haven, Covert, Bangor, Hartford, and other outlying communities: car and road safety, as you can read, sports and play safety, and home safety. Sports and play and home safety include components of water safety, and any additional support is given to partnering agencies whenever anything is identified. So to speak directly to Safe Kids Greater South Haven's water safety measures, drowning prevention in the home, in a pool, and in open water, ponds, creeks, rivers, inland lakes, and Lake Michigan. Home water safety education to caregivers includes infants and young children. We are dismayed to learn that a lot of folks don't understand that children, littles can drown in 1 inch of water or less. So we certainly work around that. Pool safety, I have met with the Visitors Bureau, and we will be, we meaning Safe Kids Greater South Haven, will be delivering water watcher cards to the local hotels with instructions on how they can order more. It is an endless supply of these water watcher cards for folks to use while their kids are in pools. We will also provide cards to Four Seasons Pool and Spa here and in Coloma. They can give them to their folks as they see fit. Anybody wants one, they can have one. And the Visitors Bureau is willing to work with our short-term rental owners to include water watcher cards in their Good Neighbor folders, or as items to include in a rental packet, make it into a magnet. All kinds of options have been on the table. Safe Kids Worldwide also has water watcher cards that are more general, as in they include pools and open water. I would like to get these printed. And we even threw around the idea of having it printed on a towel. So if you're sitting on the water watcher towel at the beach, we know that you're the water watcher. We'd like to do some fundraising to cover the cost of that printing and be able to provide these water watcher cards to all short-term rental folks. And again, provide them to the Visitors Bureau, the chamber, local businesses, so they can have them on hand to give out to visitors. Our goal here is to reach as many day trippers as possible. I'd like to make sure that we have educational components in places beyond our short-term rentals, because we do have a lot of folks come from, outlying areas to our beaches on a daily basis. And I would like to engage some local businesses and some Katya cards where we have local folks who catch people doing the right thing on the beach, parents watching with no distractions their children in the water, kids with life jackets on, parents keeping their kids out of the water when the waves are high, making them just stay in the hard sand and playing in the sand, and hopefully be able to engage local businesses into, free ice cream cone or pop or a juice or a water or a popsicle, those kinds of things. So that is also in the works. We have life jacket loaner boards. We have one station placed at the Van Buren State Park. It was stocked with 4 each infant, child, youth, adult, and adult oversized life jackets. That was placed late in the season in 2018. I beg your pardon, 2019. It was built by an Eagle Scout named Deegan. And I happened to be out there on a day where some family were looking at the signage and grabbing a life jacket, and it was very interesting. Loaner stations moving forward. I received approval from Covert Township Board to place a board at the Covert Township Park in 2019. Shar approved a placement at Pilgrim Haven in 2019. Safe Kids Greater South Haven is been committed to facilitating the placement of additional life jacket loaner boards moving north along the beach. We've spoken about placing them on South Haven beaches. We would need assistance with donations of materials to build the life jacket loaner boards and assistance with the build of the boards. Pilgrim Haven's lumber was donated by Overijssel Lumber just as the schools were shut down, and the South Haven robotics team had already offered to build that board. So I need to reach out to Kevin D with the South Haven Public Schools to see when he expects we'll be able to move forward with Pilgrim Haven's board. Additional visitor water safety education efforts. I hope you all know that we had some placemats printed with the assistance of Shays, Ron Weiss and Brandon Hintz and myself and the Great Lakes Water Safety Consortium and Jessica Byers went back and forth and did some editing and some revision and some common language for the placemats. 10,000 were printed. Shay's staff handed the placemats out to local restaurants. Additional placemats went to the Visitors Bureau. They were an enormous hit. I was furloughed when all this happened and came back to an incredible, everybody was very grateful to have had those through the summer. Incredible reception. Restaurant owners that I did contact expressed a desire to continue to provide those placemats to the patrons. The placemats were presented during the Great Lakes Water Safety Consortium's Water Safety Jam session number 6, which was titled What Every Kid and Their Parents Should Know About Water Safety. And from that virtual presentation to all Great Lakes states, many participating agencies requested permission to co-brand and use the placemats in their communities. So Jessica's work and Ron's idea has been spread throughout all 5 Great Lakes states, well, all states on all 5 Great Lakes. Additional water safety education efforts. I am currently working on an interactive South Haven specific water safety education game in partnership with Mary Phillips, who is the technology and academically talented teacher with South Haven Public Schools, where parents or families can scan a QR code, go to a quiz. When they answer all 100 or all 10 questions and get 100%, they would earn a % off coupon from a local business. Most incorrect responses either link to videos or infographics, and each incorrect response returns the user back to that question. So they can't move forward until they get all of the facts and details for a particular question. And then once they make a correct response, there's a positive statement about that behavior. It moves them to the next question. Told you it was going to be fast and furious. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Pam, can you give us a little bit more detail on what exactly is on the Water Watcher cards?
Do you want to see pictures, Cam?
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Let me pull this back up. Can you still see my screen?
No.
Okay. Oop, sorry. Are you seeing my screen? Nope, it's saying it's paused. Cam, I think I locked my computer up.
That's okay. Can you describe exactly what type of information's on there for us?
I can show you the ones for the hotels. Happen to have one right here. So this is something that we would encourage hotel front desk staff to hand to parents as they are checking in. And they would take this card, make the commitment to be the water safety watcher. And while they have this on, they make no, they stay focused on the children in the pool. They don't have their book, they don't have their phone, they don't have somebody sitting next to them that they're having a chit chat with.
So similar as to commitment made by a designated driver and identification for a designated driver type of situation.
Right. And there is actually a pledge component to those water safety cards. Safe Kids Worldwide's cards are just an identifier. There's not a pledge component to it, I don't believe.
Okay. And maybe this is a question for Kate and or Chris. If Safe Kids committed to putting up the life jacket loaner stations at, say, the North and South Beach, would there be any barriers to them doing that, to the city allowing them to do that?
No, I think that we were already in those discussions when Brian was here, and what that entails is a license agreement.
Okay.
Yes, my question would be is versus rings, what's the likelihood of life jackets being stolen? I mean, I lose 50 a year, which is about $1,500. So we rent about 6,000 to 7,000 rentals a season. So
Chris, the only thing that I have to compare to is the Safe Kids in Muskegon. And she has a very low theft rate because the life jackets do have, Safe Kids Greater South Haven all over them. They're printed, they're blue. I actually saw some, I think in some education things that have gone on locally, but they're fluorescent blue. She just doesn't have the theft.
sounds like I need to change my life jackets to say Safe Kids.
Hey, you know what? We can work together.
It sounds like a bowling alley shoes type of situation.
Yeah.
You want to use them, but you don't want to own them. Would the commitment be from Safe Kids to continue to maintain that and replenish as needed?
We would maintain the life jackets. The conversation that we had previously with the Shara board and the city would be that essentially city personnel would help maintain the board itself, and then we would keep it stocked with life jackets.
Okay.
Any other committee members have questions?
You mentioned Pam fundraising. I know Rotary has committed some money for the reprints of the placemats, but if you has given that to Shays for you. But there might be other organizations if you were to put together a fundraising pitch. I'm guessing there would be other organizations in the community that would be interested.
I appreciate the offer. Thank you.
Yeah, and South Haven Life would be committed to helping with those efforts as well as building of the boards if needed.
Alright. And then, Pam, question for me. The quiz you were talking about, that has or has not been implemented already,
It is in the process of being created.
developed, okay. So that's quite inventive. I think that'll work quite nicely, and hopefully it'll provide us with some data on what percentage can get 100%. And then,
I'm very excited. I just started looking at it Monday afternoon. Somebody put a bug in my ear. I think her name was Cam. And I started reaching out to some folks, and it's been an exciting week. I've had a lot of fun.
Tim, I think you bring up an interesting point, and I don't know if this has been considered by Pam, by you or Mary. If we could get some sort of, or if Safe Kids could get some sort of data collection, be able to build some models that would show us year over year how many people participate in it, how many people get it right, how many people continue through. I think that
At
would
this
be
point,
interesting.
yeah, at this point, we're building it on a Google form. So we
Oh,
are
then you
able
should
to
have that,
collect
yeah.
that data.
and then lastly, this also probably brings in Chris to comment. When it comes to life jackets and multiple public uses, is there any kind of sanitation requirement? Or sanitization, not sanitation, sanitization.
Depends. It depends. First off, if it's hot out, if it's hot and sunny, you're fine. You can leave it out. UV is fine. But if it's been dry, if it's been overcast or slightly cool, they do need to be disinfected, sprayed. At least every once in a while. We try not to use a life jacket within the same day if we can.
Mhm.
Otherwise, we'll leave those out, let those air dry, but those have to be in sunlight. So
Okay.
I would
Chris, do
imagine
you
as
use
long as
quad?
the thing is not completely covered, they would be fine. I think if they're covered, the only bad parts of that is if they're not covered, sunlight's going to break down the coloring of the life jackets, which it's just part of life on that one.
Right.
But you kind of need sunlight.
Right.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Well, seeing none, I'll thank Pam for joining us. You're welcome to stay. And thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Pam.
Okay, now we'll move on to the discussion, continuation of discussion of the topics that everybody had identified at our last meeting. And just a reminder that we do have a link to the base document that we're referring to. And so we're going to move into 5A, which is beach safety. And the first one is signage. And I know we do have various signs. I think most of them are listed in that document, but maybe Kate, you want to expand on that a little bit more?
Yes. So this is a link right to the current beach safety plan, and it goes into signage. We have the no lifeguard on duty signs that are out there, both in English and in Spanish. It's a red field with a white lettering, seems to show up well. We also have the rip current signs, and I'm not sure if Pam had talked about it. I know that when I talked to her on the phone this week, she mentioned there may be some new rip current signs that she's going to share with me. Again, we're looking at, it looks like Pam's got her hand up, but if you can tell here, they are both in English and in Spanish, and there is also an infographic. And let me have Pam unmute herself. Pam, are you there?
I am. There is an updated version of this rip current that shows multiple paths out of the rip once you break the rip.
Okay.
I can share that with you now in an email.
Okay. Thank you so much, Pam.
You bet.
Okay. So as she mentioned there, right here, we see a rip current, how to break the rip. shows coming out and swimming parallel, but looks like there's new signage. Also, there's just some verbiage down here on how to get out of a rip current, safety, and of course, if you see a swimmer in distress, call 911. We have our pier safety sign. It's pretty, as you can see, there's a lot going on here. We explain the flotation ring, we explain the throw ring, throw rope in case of emergency, call 911. These are off to the side of the pier. The Corps of Engineers signs are not out there anymore. They were, the Corps came and took their signs away. They said that they were not up to the current standards. So what we are doing is having signs made that show you are now leaving city property, entering federal property. I cannot have the Corps put their signs out. They let me know last summer that it would probably be a year before they could get new signage out. So what we will do is make sure that visitors know that they are now leaving the beach, going onto federal property. And this showed where they used to be located on the beach. We do have this no swimming and diving, which we are refreshing this year, as well as this entering the water from the pier is prohibited is located on the catwalk. We also have the 50 swimming within the 50 feet of the pier is in the sand. Now that's been moved a couple times because as the water has come up, we've had to move that around. And so it's been a moving target at this point. So were most of the flagpoles, to be honest. We've moved a couple of those up and down, up into the sand because of the high water. So that's what I have right there. And of course our beach warning flags, which we've never, I don't think have ever had the double red flag. So this is something that this does need to be amended up here, is that we've only had the 3 flags, the green, the yellow, and the red. So.
Okay, would there be any reason why we couldn't have that 4th flag?
I think the reason why we don't have the 4th flag is because we follow what the state of Michigan does, and they do not use a 4th flag.
Okay.
Okay, so those are all the signs we have at the beach. Do we have enough? Not enough? Do we need other signs? That's the question before the committee right now.
Kate, I have a question on the pier signage. So you'd said we're losing the Corps of Engineers signage, and that the signage that we're looking at putting up just simply states that they're moving onto federal property. Will there be any additional safety warnings on that signage?
We pretty much were going to be following the same language as what they had out there, which was, structure not designed for public access, proceed at your own risk, something to that effect, but just saying that you are now leaving the beach. I think it'd be smart for us to put something out there that, proceed at your own risk, but we haven't worked out the language entirely. But if there's some recommendation coming out of this committee, I would be happy to look at that.
I think one of the things that we've talked about, I think in the past, is so many people do not understand that even an inch of water coming up over the pier, it puts their lives at risk. So something warning people that if water is coming up onto the pier, it's a much different situation. I think if we're not going to be erecting barriers that prevent people from going out in those situations, I think we at least need to warn them of the increased risk.
There were several instances last year of people who slipped and fell, and I don't know if there's just a way to have some language that that says pier deck slippery when wet, or something that would state that. I don't know if that increases our liability by telling them that that risk exists, but there was a lot of calls last year where people fell and broke ankles and all sorts of instances besides all of the water related ones that we've talked about.
We did. I know that for what we did is, as people were going onto the walkway where the HESCO barriers were, we put up signs, slippery surface with an arrow. and tried to, give them some notice, even though it's not our property. But when there is standing water on there and that algae builds up to a slick surface, even to Cam's point, that just it doesn't take very much water to take your feet out underneath you. But it also, when there's standing water or the surface has been underwater for some time, there is a buildup of slick substances underneath that make it very treacherous to walk.
I'm pretty sure, Kate, that some of the old signs had that on there. I wish I could remember exactly what it said, but it stated that danger. I don't know when those signs were removed or gone, and I don't know if Tim would remember, but maybe his dad or somebody, but they used to have warnings about it being a slippery surface.
Well, this is a blow up of the sign that is near the pier. And as you can see, this is not public property, procedure and risk. Use caution if the pier is wet or slippery, as it may, that waves wash over the pier, high winds and storm conditions exist, no diving or jumping. Don't use bikes or skates, use strollers and wheelchairs with caution. So this is this is a lot of information for them to look at, and maybe it's not the most appealing visually. There's a lot of information being put on the person for this right now, or when you're supposed to go onto the pier, rather. Is there anything else?
What would be the need for additional signage to address the movement from city property to federal property when we have it called out here on that first bullet point that it's not public property?
I think that you can always put a sign out there that says just making it one more notification that, hey, we're just letting you know you're moving from here to here. It's hard to see if there's not an actual physical barrier. And actually the physical barrier, if you were thinking about it, would be from where the city property and the federal property meet. That would be one entire, but people wouldn't see that necessarily. So it's just one more way to provide notification.
I wonder also if it might be a way to inform people that to let them know that, so when they look back and say, well, why didn't the city just close the pier? Well, we can't close the pier if we don't own the pier. So I think that could be information as well.
Honestly though, Chris, I wish we could stop saying that, because
Well, we still can't own it.
we have precedent now from Holland that suggests that we could work with the Army Corps of Engineers to get gates put.
Suggest, but we still have to wait and see until we know for sure we can't. I'm saying I would, trust me, I'm all about closing it. If we can get it approved by Army Corps of Engineers, I'm 100% behind it. But if we can't, I still think this is a good way to say, hey, this might be why people.
Okay.
Sean, I thought I saw your hand up. I made you a co-host. I think I maybe you switched devices, but go ahead.
I did. No, I was just trying to get you to unmute me. Thanks.
Sorry about that.
Appreciate it. Nope, no worries.
Is there any additional wordage or things that you think should be on any of, like a signage next to the pier?
I talked to a previous councilman who lives in Muskegon. And of course, it sounds simple. People wouldn't like it. He suggested that a sign that said, 36 people drowned in Lake Michigan last year, 6 people here. And it's an eye opener, but I think it was Cam or somebody who sent some of the stuff that you put out yesterday. And like the one woman said, she said, I'm always looking down because she's always watching her kids. I think the problem, no matter what we do, we hit on it last meeting, are the signs where they belong and are they really readable? And then we had the one gentleman from the Surf Rescue that was saying that, we are like an amusement park because we charge for the use. Well, we charge for parking, but you go to amusement park, everything is controlled access. You're controlled going into the park and then every ride is controlled and all your warning signs are right there when I call them the cattle herd things, but your signs are right there. We got to read them. I think we can do a really good job with putting good information on the signs, but you got to get it to where people are going to read it. And I think just putting it by where you pay, it's better, but I think we got to have a way where the people are going through and seeing it as they come. And then we could put it at all the beaches, same way.
I thought it was very effective last summer with the electronic sign relative to the COVID warning. Why not have electronic sign at the entrance to the South Beach? You got 2 entrance points and the one entrance to the North Beach that would say, red flags flying today, do not swim, or whatever the appropriate language would be. I mean, get it when the cars are entering the respective areas rather than when they're lugging all of their stuff to the beach and then they're seeing.
I happened to tell him that we even had one of the news crews down, and people were saying they didn't know about the flags. They don't understand the flags. He made a point. You ought to put up just like you do a traffic sign. Everybody knows red means stop. He said actually use traffic lights with a sign underneath it, water conditions. And I said, that's not bad neither. And he said, you could switch them from City Hall or wherever you wanted to. You could change as your conditions changed.
The one thing I would add on that is that we can improve signage when it comes to whether or not you should or shouldn't enter the water, or if water conditions are safe. We can improve signage all day long, but if our signage then includes a swim at your own risk message, we are undermining that initial flag warning every single time. So I feel very strongly that until we move away from a swim at your own risk situation, we're going to continue to have these problems.
Well, and I actually agree with you, Cam, on that. And one of the things that even on Pam's stuff she was showing that I liked, it says responsibility. You're responsible. I don't think any of our signs put people on notice that they're responsible for their safety and the safety of others. We're in this world now where nobody's responsible or accountable anymore. And it'd be nice to have something like that so people go, yeah, I didn't even think about that. Just
that makes sense, honestly.
We'll get to
and I like the lights too. The lights make sense because people notice lights. I mean,
and they
people don't take the time to read.
Yep. And everybody knows traffic lights.
Chris, on red flag days, do you guys still rent things for people to go out in the water?
No, we find actually even on yellow flags, most people don't want to even go. Usually red flag days are the days I get to go kiteboarding. I get a day off.
And just a reminder, flags are next. We're trying to work through the signs.
Sorry.
No problem. So are new signs needed, or the signs we have adequate, but they need a different placement?
If we did anything to the signs, I would make them simpler. Just saying, stop, go, no, too many words on them.
Yep.
Agreed. Yeah.
Clean, clear.
Hey, Cam, this is Sean. Can you bring up that one blue sign at the base of the pier again? Are you able to do that so we can see it?
Yes.
Thank you. There's something I just caught that I wanted to point out. It kind of goes with what Cam's saying and also with what Chris was saying with simplicity. So part of this whole, we're saying two things in multiple places and we're kind of contradicting ourselves. You showed us earlier the ordinances that talk about not jumping off the pier. And then you also showed us, not swimming 50 feet from the pier ordinance. And yet right here on this sign on the left-hand, second, third bullet down under pier safety guidelines, it says diving or jumping from pier is not advised. It's actually illegal. So
Mhm.
that's one example where we might want to just put our nuggets together and start proofing the signs that are there in a little more detail, I think, to kind of do what Chris was saying, simplify and see if there's a way to make it a little clearer if we're going to go that route.
Thank you. Good catch. Thank you.
We may want to also at the top, if we can't do anything with the pier, we do say the city of South Haven, but then we also don't control the pier. So I guess by saying that the city's giving the information, yet we don't control it, I don't know, just wondering
Yeah.
about that.
Doesn't solve the problem.
Hey, guys, I'd also like to point out too, in looking at this particular sign, basically everything that's on the right-hand side of that sign really does not need to be on that sign and needs to be with the devices themselves. Nobody is going to come back and look at that sign.
That's a good point.
That is a
Yep.
very good point. Yeah.
And you, Kate, this is really good, I would think, for liability, for giving people their notice. But couldn't we have a simpler sign, on there that the pier may be unsafe? Yeah, and maybe on the top of that, instead of the city of South Haven, put the Army Corps of Engineers pier. Yeah,
Okay.
A question too on the ordinance related to jumping off of the pier and to swimming within 50 feet of the pier. How, in theory, is that being enforced? Because I've never seen it enforced, honestly. And if we're going to say that those are ordinances, do we not have to back that up with some sort of enforcement? Can we back up this no swimming within 50 feet of the pier when we're a swim at your own risk beach?
I can tell you how we did it when we have lifeguards, but maybe that's a lifeguard. Tim, if you want me to wait on that for lifeguards, I can do that.
This would
Yeah,
be,
why don't you wait on that till we get to lifeguards? We're just trying to figure out if we
What-
have the right signage, we need to change the signage and location of the signage. Then we'll move on to the flags.
Yeah.
Whether there's, the risk factor on the beach, I don't think necessarily says that you can't designate where you can or cannot swim. We do have, our swim area is designated by ordinance. We do have in there that you shall not swim next to the pier. It's clear that's one of the most dangerous places for people to be. How to ticket them is when they come out of the water, if the officer is there and we're able to get there, that's when the ticket would be written. Similar to when a person jumps off the pier and they're caught, you wait for them to come out of the water and then you are able to then ticket them at that time. Because really, we're not jumping in after them, we're waiting for them to come to shore and then advise them of their wrongdoing and then notice them of their infraction.
It would be
Okay,
interesting.
Wh-
Sorry,
When I'm
Frank.
when I'm looking at this sign, one thing I do notice is if you look at the bottom right hand corner where it says please report misuse,
Mm-hmm.
you're scrolling with it now.
Sorry, I'm sorry. That one?
No, the sign we had up.
Oh,
With-
okay. Let me
The
get,
big one.
hold on a second. I'll get it back up there. So you guys don't have to see me go real fast.
Well, basically, what I'm trying to get to is the fastening attachments to that. If you look where that one is, it's right into the number. So somebody from the area that doesn't know the prefix number,
Mm-hmm.
that could be problematic.
That's right.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
good point.
They all have cell phones.
But anyway, just something to watch when we are erecting signs.
Mhm.
Make sure we've got spaces for the fasteners already figured out in the layout.
I see some hands raised. It looks like Chief Thompson wants to come in, so I will go ahead and unmute her.
Hi, thank you, and I'll be quick. I just wanted to respond to a comment that I think Cam made about enforcement. I can tell you, you may not see it every day, but I personally, when I've worked the road, I've issued many tickets when we've received calls of people jumping off the pier. And for obvious reasons, we're not equipped during our whole tour of duty to jump into the water. We've had officers do that, but we have a lot of equipment. It's not safe. So I can tell you, I personally have written many tickets, and it entails us to wait for the people to swim out of the water. So you may not see it every day, and I don't have the ticket numbers with me, but we have actually made several arrests and written many tickets for people jumping off the pier. But obviously, we're not in water rescue gear 24/7, but when we do receive calls of that, we have made arrests and issued tickets for that, either jumping into the lake or into the river. So I just wanted to add that we do the best that we can with what we're equipped to do.
I do see another hand raised, but it's not a commissioner or committee member. Do you want to take the comment now, or you want to wait?
No, let's take a quick comment now.
Okay. I'm going to ask Greg to go ahead and unmute himself. And Greg, you'll have 3 minutes to make your comment. Greg Field.
Hey, thank you so much, Kate. Sorry, I had to jump on a little late here. Real quick, is the main goal of signage to also be educational in content and in purpose?
I think
As far as water safety education?
I think that at this point, the signage that's out there is obviously to let them know what the rules are. Obviously, there's risk and pier safety guidelines. So we do have education. We have the rip current signs that we talked about earlier.
Okay, yeah, and I apologize, I jumped on a little late. Is there any signage that will talk about how to do self-rescue?
I don't think we have self-rescue signage out there.
Okay, it might be worth something considering. All the research as far as drowning prevention kind of says the big 3 things, obviously prevention, as you're doing here with some signage, but also self-rescue along with other rescue, how to rescue others safely and how to keep yourself safe. So the self-rescue techniques, primarily floating on your back, would be a really good one to add to, or to put in addition to maybe some rip current response signage that could easily save lives. So just a recommendation to consider. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
The thing I would say about that, though, with the self-rescue is if people need self-rescued from teaching kiteboarding, having a sign on the beach isn't going to help them a whole lot if they're needing rescued at that point. But to rescue others might be something, if it could be done simple. I think the key to any sign is simple. Keep it simple.
Okay, so we've discussed a myriad of items around signage. Does anybody have any recommendation to make at this point that's different than what we currently have?
Before Cam jumps in there, Chair, one thing we talked about last meeting is making signage 2-sided. Is that something is that what your comment was, Cam? Okay. That was something we talked about last meeting, but I wasn't sure if that was coming forward, but that might be something that we talked about quite a bit, that having it on both sides. So if you were coming back from the beach, maybe walking up to the bathrooms, that's another way to get more notice.
I would go one step further with the sign down on the beach about swimming within 50 feet of the pier, and see if you could, especially because of the type of post that it's currently on, make that a 4-sided. So you could see it as you were coming and going from the pier to off of the beach.
Okay.
So there's been enough discussion on this. I suppose when the minutes come out, we can kind of comb through that to rake out the individual items that were identified for a closer look at the next meeting. Does that sound fair?
Yep.
Well, I don't see anybody jump and say, hey, we need this, this, and this. So,
I'll tell you this, I think you need something stating that they're responsible.
It's simple. That's all I gotta say.
okay. All right, so let's get on to the
Oh,
flag.
we do have a hand raised too, by the way.
I see one more person.
Oh, Faith? Okay, Faith, you got a couple minutes there.
Let me get right there. A second. All right, I'll go ahead and ask to unmute, and you'll have Mr. Benjamin, if you go ahead and get your hand lowered, and you will have, where did he go now? Ah, there we go. There you go, Mr. Benjamin, you have 3 minutes.
Yes, hi, Dave Benjamin with the Great Lakes Surf Rescue Project. I wanted to talk about, I understand the signage suggestion that you are responsible. It kind of goes along with the swim at your own risk signage. You need to understand that water safety is not common sense. It's common sense if your clothes catch on fire to stop, drop, and roll. But it's not common sense that drowning is one of the leading causes of accidental death in the nation and the world. It's not common sense that winds makes waves and waves make dangerous currents. It's not common sense that red means, you know, high hazard, stay out of the water, especially when you go to the beach and there's a red flag flying and hundreds of people are in the water. It's not
Hey,
common.
Dave, if I could cut you off for just a second, what I'm trying to figure out is, do we have the right signage or do we need to change it? So if you could keep your comments germane to that right now. I understand where you're going with the overall safety or thoughts on the beach, but we're trying to keep it kind of dialed in to what.
I understand. But if there's also the emphasis of, hey, we need to put these at your own risk sign, or you're responsible, we're gonna, give you access to the water, but if something happens to you, it's on you. That doesn't fly with water safety. You need to understand that. You need to have the foundation that the people who are coming to your beach, you say they're going swimming, but they're not swimming, they're wading. Knee high, waist high, they take a couple strokes, but there's very few people that are swimming more than 100 yards without stopping. So really the people coming to your beach are not swimmers, they're waders. And if they get in trouble in water over their head, they're in a bad situation.
Yeah, they're not waiting.
Well, yeah, but they could step into water over their head off of a sandbar. Or there could be waves that pull them in a current that pulls them down the beach into water over their head or pulls them out in a rip current.
You know, that for me, this is the same thing. This is the same thing about the dumbing down of America. People understand that you can't cross a busy street just by walking out.
So there's this thing called the stigma of drowning. When a drowning happens, people take the point of view like you saying, hey, let's blame the victim. Let's blame the parents or caregivers, or let's blame it on Darwinism. And when that happens, it discontinues the conversation of educating the public, and it makes no difference. It doesn't save anybody's lives. And I want to say,
signs.
you can't.
Hey guys, just hold on here a second. So Dave's on the clock for his 3 minutes, and this isn't really a back and forth. The committee's a back and forth, okay? So, and the only thing I want to talk about right now, and this is what the comments should be germane to, is signage. So the rest of this is
this is about signage because he's leaning towards, hey, let's just, we can't fix stupid. That's kind of the overall summation of the stigma of drowning. And if you want to look at drowning, the mom or dad of a drowning person in the face and tell them, hey, your child shouldn't have been stupid, or you should have been a better parent. There are parents and family members of drowning victims on this call now and on previous committee meetings, and it doesn't fly to sit here and say, hey, we can't fix stupid, or we're going to take this, they should have known better. And every time you say there's a red flag flying and somebody drowned,
There's that 3-minute warning.
It's,
but
it's just further, you know,
Thank you, Dave. Next up was Faith, I believe.
okay, sorry about that.
Is Faith still there? Did she still have a comment?
Let me see if I can get her started up. All right, let's find Faith. Faith, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and unmute. You've got 3 minutes.
Okay, just really quickly, I noticed there was a sign about the classic rip current. And then, but I know at South Haven Beach, there's a really strong, dangerous structural current. And they do make signs that like show what a structural current is and how to try to escape that too. So I think if you're gonna have signs showing the currents at the beach, you could consider adding a structural current sign.
Thank
And
you.
that's everything.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
I'd like to second that. That's an important consideration, especially at the north and south beaches. Talk about longshore currents, but we've got that additional factor there.
All right, is that it for signage for now? Can we move on to the flag system? I think the answer is yes. So we're going to 5A, Part 2, Flag System Communication to Visitors. So obviously we have flag system, state of Michigan uses the same system. Is that good enough? Not good enough? And how do we communicate that to the visitors?
Just to break in here, I know that Tom
Yep.
Renner mentioned why we don't use that. If we can look into more information on the double red flag and bring that back to the committee at our next meeting, if that's what you'd like to have done, Tom, or committee members.
I would. I think that I've seen that the top one there, the double red flag at some other Michigan beaches. So I don't think it's a stipulation that you can't use it, but if we could replace the high hazard one with that water closed to public one, to me, that would be a tremendous thing to do.
Now, I'm just trying to remember when we were going around looking at construction of a new water plant, and we visited some other communities. And one in particular, they had to end up building 2 water plants. One was a membrane and one was like the one we have. And that was due to their intake pipe sometimes having problems with its location due to their sewage discharge. And I think this water closed to public flag has less to do with people in the water bathing or wading or swimming and more to do with health safety risk closings.
This might be a good thing to have on like E. coli issues, maybe, is using, bringing out the double red flag. I think if it's just a swimming thing, I think we might want to stick closer to what Michigan's already doing with the 3. Sorry for the Paw Patrol.
Yeah, since we don't have any sharks and jellyfish, I think that's kind of where the water closed to public.
Well, I thought our red flags had the swimmer on it with the line through it.
I don't know. I'm just saying when one is used versus the other.
Right. But
So-
I thought our triangular flag had the circle with the swimmer and the line through it. I thought, but I could be wrong.
I have Brandon Hins on the phone, on the line. Brandon's our Shays director. Brandon, do you know what kind of flags we have? Do they have a swimmer on the red flag?
Right now, we only have a single red flag. We did initially, when we started the flag program, we did have a double red, but after we tried the single red, we tried the double red. When we put the double red, there was just as many people going in as there were the single red. So we just kind of stuck with the single and just left it at that. I don't know that we have any of the swimmer with the crosshatch flags left, but that's something we could definitely, look into.
Now, in our prior discussion, some folks talked about traffic lights that are, everybody's familiar with the red, yellow, green on those. So is that a use in conjunction or change these out for those?
I think I can expound upon that a little bit, or the possibility of that being an improvement, the traffic lights. I think one of the other important things to talk about in regards to flags is the frequency with which they get changed and who's actually monitoring the conditions, or who's deciding when a flag needs to be changed. And I think if we did move to a light system versus a flag system, maybe that would facilitate faster changing. It could also possibly be more eye-catching. It could be maybe a four-sided thing. So when you're, it might catch your eye a little bit more when you're in the water with your back to it. I don't know. But I think that we may even want to add an additional bullet to this A2, where we're actually talking about the frequency with which they're changed and who's directing that change.
Well, we have Brandon on the line. He can explain it because it's pretty efficient system in my mind. So I let him tell us what Shays does to manage that.
Yep. At this point, every morning when our beach interns come in, they check the computer in the website, the Great Lakes. I apologize, I can't remember the name of the website now, but the flags are updated, or the conditions are updated every day. And I believe every 4 hours, if I recall right. And we go by their recommendations. Our interns or our staff will also take into account our structural current, as you know, along the South Pier. And if they do notice any rip currents, they will change the flag accordingly. I've always advised them, Ron Wise always advised them as well, to err on the side of caution if there was something they thought was unsafe. So they'll go a step higher, and then we'd reevaluate later in the day. But at this point, we go by the recommendations off the website. And if we feel that it's unsafe or there's a hazard there, we'll step it up a little bit. They get checked every 3 hours. Our interns go out and check them.
I don't want anybody to misunderstand my statement on frequency of changing and who owns that, because it's not a condemnation on my part of the job that Shays is doing, because Shays does a fantastic job, and that needs to be made clear on my part. My question is it in regards to the frequency, is especially because we have those pier heads on the North and South Beach. If we're being directed by the Weather Service as to what flags need to go up, not all the right factors are being taken into account when putting those flags up. And in multiple instances, including the instances where we had drownings last year and the year before, the water, the safety of the water changed within seconds. And that's hard to address when you don't have somebody stationed at the beach.
I think NOAA, it's Great Lakes NOAA that does it, that you guys are pulling from, Brandon. I know, because it's about every 3 hours that it happens. For water, you can actually see water changes. It takes, on a really fast moving day, it takes about 15 minutes from the moment you can see it to actually hitting us on the beach. Kiteboarders call it sheep grazing. We see little, sorry, that's my son. We see white caps popping up out in the far distance, and you'll see those come in very quickly. The only time we do see a very fast change is like a microburst. And I've only seen that probably once in the last 10 years. And then trash cans are moving pretty much as fast as we are anyways, so.
I think it might be worth reviewing some of the footage from some of the incidents that we had this past summer.
Yeah, and you've had drowning victims' families talk about how fast they change and that they didn't realize that the flags were changed. Hey, Brandon, this is Sean Russell. I'm just curious, how is your person that's changing the flag and evaluating those currents that you talked about? How are they trained? Are they in the water to know what those currents are doing, or excuse me, what's their training? That
Mostly
intern.
we will take them out in the springtime, and we'll, you know, we hire from a pool of interns, and we pick the best ones. We pick the ones that we believe are, you know, trained and, you know, qualified, and we'll take them out, show them some of our things that we see, and then we'll also, you know, have them sit through some training at the station, as long as going out with them for the first week or two until they get on their feet a little bit. And just, you know, the basic things as far as, you know, rip currents that you can see, that you can visually see from above, especially up on the bluff. If we see a, you know, if we happen to see a good one that day, we'll point it out to them, say, hey, you're looking for this and that. And South Pier, as you all know, that's pretty much a everyday kind of thing. But
Okay. And when they change really fast, what, particularly when they go from yellow to red, is that person clearing the water to, you know, to clear the beach when it goes to a red flag, or are they just changing the flag?
they will educate the people, and they'll ask them to exit. Hey, this is a red flag. These days you might get half that'll listen to you, the other half will just keep on swimming. But they will educate, and you know, they're not given, they don't have the authority to, you know, cite anybody or kick anybody out. And the best they can do is educate. And with the crew of interns we've had, I think they've done a pretty good job at it.
No whistling them in or anything though, just educating on the beach is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Brandon, how many flag poles are there for these flags?
13.
And how long does it take to change 13 flags?
About an hour. From start to finish to change. If you were to change them all, I take that back. There's 15. If from start to finish, all the way from what's their furthest, Newcomb Beach, all the way down to the last one by the stairs on the South Beach, is about an hour.
And then is that one person or one person on the south and one on the north?
That's one person total. They have a UTV. They'll start out at well, in the morning, say when they go to set them up in the morning. They'll start at the North Beach, way up by Newcomb, which is flag number 1, and then proceed to the South Beach until they wind up at the last one down by the stairs. And one person, one UTV, and it takes about an hour.
Okay. And the reason I point that out to this committee is because there was some talk earlier about electronic red, yellow, and green. And obviously, if we spent the money on that, you're getting rid of 1 hour to change all the flags, and you're able to do it in probably seconds. So what else do we have for flags?
That's important, Tim. Just one thing. Tim, just one comment on that, because I'm probably one of the few, or maybe the only on this committee that's changed the flags before physically, myself. And you know, if we're going to speak to experience, like Chris was talking about the kiteboarding, I've changed the flags on one beach from green to yellow to red in 1 hour. It would happen regularly. I mean, you're a fisherman, you've seen it, you know how quick something can brew or change, lightning, you name it. That's not uncommon. So I like the idea of something happening faster than an hour, and certainly than every 3 hours for evaluation. So, you know, I think that's valuable, but I still don't think that not having eyes down there or experience down there in some capacity is going to suffice for the conditions in that lake, you know, especially off of a computer and a NOAA website that is not specific to our 2 beaches.
I hear you. But when we're talking about the flag system, and this is what you guys are here to do, is it adequate? Does it need to be changed?
Yeah,
And
that's,
do we need to communicate the red, yellow, and green in a different way to people so they understand what it is?
yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying is I don't believe it's adequate, not because the flags are inadequate, but because of the limb facts of how we're trying to change them and run them from a fire department that is not on the beach. That's my point with the flag specifically. I mean, yeah, I could roll my lifeguard argument in there. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to say specifically, and again, Brandon, I know you're on the line. This is no hit to you guys. Like Cam said, you guys do amazing for what you guys do. But in this instance, this is, sorry, lights went out. This is a situation where having somebody evaluating those conditions real time, if you're going to do it effectively, that's how flags are used. Flags are not meant to be changed every 3 hours from somebody evaluating from a distance for the most part. And Brandon, I follow what you were saying about them being down there, but that's what I'm saying about the flags, Tim.
Okay.
I like the lights with the flags. I will say that.
I
would like to stand out a little bit more. And honestly, I don't always notice the flags, and I'm there a lot. So
I have a question about the lights. Has anybody on this panel had experience with the lights? What I'm curious to know is a bright sunny day, how visible is that light versus a flag flying?
That's
You know, I mean, we talked about the stoplight situation. Well, a stoplight's visible because you're right there in front of it. So now we have, these couple of flag stations. That would be my only question. I think it's a fantastic idea just for the simplicity and the quickness of it. I just don't know the visibility.
I'm thinking more like, how bigger marinas like Miami and stuff, you see like light poles out in the water and stuff. That's kind of what I was thinking, but you're right. That's a good question, because if it's not visible, what's the point?
Well,
Perhaps a strobe lights might be more effective.
That
how
could cause
about
a lot of seizures?
I wonder if we could do a buoy in the water.
That's a good
There's
idea.
an idea.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Tim, I was wondering too if just some procedural changes could be done. What I mean is, if you're going to have to go to a red flag, and I don't want to put anything more on the police department, but could the police or the fire department go down there and change them? It's just a procedural change. You still got the same flags, but instead of one person trying to do them all, you'd have a lot more people and you could get them changed quicker.
Hello, Tim.
Yes.
They were talking about these lights. What powers these? You have to run 110 down there, or these battery powered or solar, or how does that work?
I think there's a mix of both, wireless and wired.
If you could do a buoy light system, then you maybe could get away with the flags, which would remove the changing of them in general, because you could see them. If you're going towards the water, you're going to see them. If you're in the water, you're going to see them.
That's true.
I would want to look into that more. I guess I look at electricity and water as not being a smart thing in a swim zone, but I'm sure that if they do make them, I would look for them.
I know that they're available in that with both solar and a battery pack. And they're an LED, so they take nothing as far as draw.
And they're lighted buoys.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. They're actually used in boating. And Chris brought up a good point about that. When you look at a larger marina like that, and they will have lighted buoys and they will change colors to let you know, you're either coming in on this side or the other. So I think that could be a fantastic idea. Have a couple floating in the water. I don't think you could get a better visual.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a note on 5A4 of swim area lighted buoy when we get to buoys, okay? That way we can get back to flags.
I'd just like to interject real quick. I know we're trying to discuss all of these things as standalone additions or solutions, but really, when we get to the lifeguards point, I think we have to depending on where we go with the lifeguard discussion, we're going to end up having to rediscuss a lot of these other items. Because a lot of these things are meant to work hand in
Kingdom,
hand.
I understand your comment, but let me just say this. When I bake a cake, I use all these different ingredients. There's different kinds of sugars, different kinds of flours. And you kind of got to talk about each ingredient before we talk about the whole cake and whether it tasted good or not, right?
Yeah, but the difference is are we baking a chocolate cake or are we baking a vanilla cake? Because chocolate and vanilla cake have different ingredients. So that I get your analogy, but it's not necessarily all the way appropriate for this. I just think when we get to discussing lifeguards and we get to discussing solutions as a whole, we'll probably have to revisit quite a few of these. And I don't think continuing to talk about them all the time in a silo is necessarily the right approach. Just my 2 cents on that.
Okay. So where else you want to go with the flag system then at this time?
We have a hand up from Greg Field. You want me to go ahead and?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to have Greg, I'm going to ask him to unmute, and Greg, you'll have 3 minutes.
Great. Thank you, Kate. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay,
Greg.
great. All right, thanks. So to answer I guess I'll speak both from the research on flags and then also from personal experience. But to answer the question, are flags adequate? The answer is no, and it's backed in the research. And I can cite specifically in Michigan, there was a study done by Michigan State University through the Sea Grant, where they interviewed males, because 80% of all drownings are men worldwide. So they interviewed males that live on the lakeshore and talked with them about flags. And what they found was, for the most part, actually almost the majority of men said that, and these were like college age students and maybe up to like low 30s. And I can get you the resources if you need, but essentially they pursue a red flag day. A red flag is a challenge. It's time to get in the water. So red flags are not a deterrent for the population that's at highest risk of drowning. And there's other research. And if, I lived in Jacksonville Beach, Florida for a while, and was friends with many lifeguards. And they talk about all the time that without people to enforce flags, what's the point of the flags? They don't save lives, and they might be helpful, but they're not the answer. They're not the solution. So I would say, to answer the question very straightforward, flags are not adequate, and it doesn't matter how quickly you change them, they don't work. That's the bottom line. And I'll speak from experience, from 10 years surfing here. I used to be a surfer on the ocean, lived in Australia, and then the East Coast, and now here. I've surfed on tons of green flag days at tons of different beaches throughout this whole stretch, from Muskegon down to St. Joe. I've surfed so many days where the flag stays green in pretty significant swell. And it certainly should have been a red flag. So from experience, from the research, and I can get you more if you need, flags are not adequate. It's not the solution. So again, you can change them as quickly as possible. Are they helpful? Certainly. Are they educational? They can be. Are they the answer? Should we lean on them? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Thanks, Greg,
Okay.
for your comments.
Was there anybody else?
No, that's the only one we have right now.
Okay. So can we move on to the public outreach? Let's do that then. Public outreach, notification systems, online, electronic, sounds, etc. So what's the committee's thoughts on public outreach? Are we doing enough, not enough? And the notification system. that we use? Is it adequate or not adequate?
I think it's important to recall, and Pam didn't go a ton into the public outreach part other than, you know, the card watcher cards and stuff. But South Haven Life did meet with Safe Kids on Monday, and they have a significant amount of public outreach efforts that they intend to put forth for water safety in South Haven this year. And I think we need to start talking about if we've got parallel work streams, and maybe we could shift our focus a little bit if Safe Kids is going to be taking on so much of that. Just a thought.
Quick question. What is South Haven Life?
Oh, South Haven Life is the online forum started this summer in response to the drownings in South Haven, where a bunch of South Haven citizens and visitors and actually families and friends of victims in South Haven get together and discuss beach safety.
So it's like a public forum.
Yes, public forum. Okay. I did include a link, Chris, in the email that Kate sent out. There's a link there if anybody's interested in seeing what's being discussed.
Hold on, is this the one that you run the light? Okay. Mm-hmm. I saw that. I didn't understand the links between the two.
Gotcha.
I've got something then for public outreach. Tim?
Yeah.
I don't know how to separate it from lifeguards, so I'll do my best. The used to do an awesome job, and from what I understand, education for water safety. We used to kind of do it hand in hand long time ago, and there was lifeguards because we would do the training together and whatnot. And that it brought a lot of viz. So I think whatever they're doing on the beach, or whatever more they can do to get their trucks down there, their folks down there, their first responder presence to let folks know, you know, I think they respect the uniform. They respect first responders as being down there in an educational role. You know, it's obviously even better if it's lifeguards because they see them together and they see them as part of a response chain. But just having them down there as far as this public outreach, I think is fantastic. And even what they do with the kids, I think at the schools already with our local folks and children, education wise for water safety has been fantastic.
Tim, one of the extensions of the flag flying by Shays is that there is a website that they update simultaneously with the flag placement, and maybe a better job of making folks aware of that link during the summer months. Right now, if they go to the Shays during the summer months, if they go to the Shays website, right at the top of the front page is a link then that takes them to showing what the color of all 15 flags are at the current moment.
You know, I'm looking at the agenda. I also see it says sounds, and I'm just curious, when a flag's changed, is there a sound system that notifies anybody that flags have been changed, or is there some kind of siren that goes off? Would that be helpful?
I've read recently where they're going to do that in Muskegon this summer. It'll be interested to research exactly what that's going to be.
That's what are all of our notification systems that we are using? It's just the flags, isn't it? And the signs?
And the website.
And the website.
Yeah, Brendan, that's one thing, if you're still on, what I was getting at with the whistle is that was super effective for us. And I never had anybody tell us that we couldn't, you know, hey, we're not going to listen to you. I mean, there was some tactful training that went into, you know, figuring out how to convince people, right, and educate them. But if your folks aren't doing that with a whistle or whatever, I don't know what it is, if it's a bullhorn maybe, but a whistle was very effective for us to at least call them in and then talk to them for a few minutes about, hey, this is why it went to red. Yellow might be kind of busy to try and do yellow, but red, you know, definitely want to clear that water, make sure you educate folks, and then move on down. Chances are when you leave, they're going to get right back in the water, but at least you've educated them.
Would there also be a way to let like Cozy and the TV stations know? You know, I saw an increased awareness that the TV stations last year during their weather reports were talking frequently about flag, you know, the red flag conditions. So if we could be a little bit more deliberate in giving notification to Cozy Radio and the TV stations, you know, that would be another notification
I think
process.
we would be shocked at though how much the flags do change constantly. I mean, through a single day, I can see them change quite a bit because we're always having to make adjustments with the employees. In IRQ is very easy to put up. We can put IRQs around where all you got to do is bring up your camera on your phone and it instantly brings you to the link of the website of Shays. That might be something very helpful instead of having to remember web addresses and giving it out to hotels or maybe even cards with IRQs. But at least using that website that we have from Shays can do a lot. I think trying to have the TV station stuff might be a little tough because I think at some point when you start to hear red flags so many times, it kind of dumbs down the senses a little bit. That's not the right wording, but that's the best I can come up with. But it just takes out that urgency a little bit, I guess.
Agreed.
Desensitizes.
Yep.
But I did speak with a couple of news reporters this summer as they were down there, and even meteorologists, including Will Haney. And while I'm on the same page with Chris that I'm not sure it would be hyper effective to have the news stations broadcasting out changes in flags, especially since nobody in the lake is watching the news. But they have shown an interest in helping with public outreach and water safety, specifically tied to their weather reports. So there are some opportunities, I think, that exist with the local news stations. And even actually, east side of the state has shown some interest in helping to work with us to educate people on the east side of the state that visit over here.
You know, Sean made a good point when we were younger. When they blew the whistle, everybody looked. And I don't know operationally when they're changing the flag right now, if they do blow a whistle or blow a horn or anything like that. But that whistle, and think about it, that's one of the noises you don't hear. You hear sirens all the time now, but you don't hear a whistle. You don't hear a whistle or a bell. And that really gets people's attention. And I don't know. I don't know what they're at, you know, how they operate or what their SOPs are. But if
I wonder though, with the day and age of TikTok, my son has 130,000 followers on TikTok and from doing stupid stuff. And I wonder if by, you know, using a bell or a whistle, it might be like, all right, let's go, you know, that kind of thing.
That's true. Yeah, that's true too.
You've got somebody on here, just FYI, I think Faith is still on here. Faith is still on here that she just lifeguarded last year or the year before down in Buchanan area or down the coast. And she could tell you exactly how effective the whistle was or wasn't. I don't know if you want to engage her, but she's here, I think.
Hello, Tim.
Yes.
I've been hearing all this talking, and what I'm thinking is for these people that don't want to pay any attention to the red flag, you can say that if the lifeguards were talking with them and coaching them on what to do, and as soon as they leave, they go back in the water. I think we should put the policemen down there and start writing tickets. And I think this will come to a fast stop, because if they're jumping off the pier, they wait for them to come in, they give them a ticket. You go ahead and get in that water when it's red and you don't want that, start writing tickets. We'll see how fast them people stop.
My point though is how different would that be than a lifeguard? Which would be a less expensive resource to have stationed on the beach.
Well, that's kind of a way out question. You got a police officer that's a sworn police officer that can give tickets, and you got a lifeguard that's just a coach. So
Nope.
what's the
No,
difference?
that's not,
You're wrong.
that's not true. That's not true, Tom. Thomas.
What do you
There's
mean?
a lot that would make a lifeguard to be able to write tickets. It would
Nope,
be, there's a
that's
lot in
not-
that process.
That's not what we're saying. What we're saying, if Natalie is still on, Natalie, you can probably speak to when we worked together, when there was lifeguards and how the lifeguards were able to force multiply for you. We absolutely did write tickets as lifeguards. We did not force people out of the water because I couldn't physically do that. Of course, we would never do that. I would blow the whistle and encourage them out of the water, and 99% of the time it worked. Sometimes they'd come out and try to tell me what they were or weren't going to do. But then I had a radio on my hip that I was able to call the police should I need them, not as a first response, but when I needed them, and they would come down and absolutely take care of it. And what was cool about it, at that point, it made such a scene that most folks around knew that if you weren't listening to what you were supposed to be doing, the police were going to be called and they were going to probably get a ticket written. So it was very effective.
But, and again, we're on public outreach, and we keep segueing away into lifeguard territories. And lifeguards is 5B. That has its own meeting. And
I would argue lifeguards address all of these. That's why I said we're trying to discuss them all in a silo, but that's not necessarily the most appropriate way.
And I appreciate that's your opinion. I don't think everybody agrees with your analysis of how this discussion should go. I'm trying to follow the agenda that we all set, or I didn't set it. I'm just the chair. You guys are the committee that you set at the last meeting. If you wanted a different agenda, that was the time to change it. Now we're following what was voted upon by this group. So if you please at least give me the leeway with that. That was a group decision. So let's just follow that, and maybe we'll get through this in a couple more meetings. So public outreach, was there anything else to go on with that we need to talk about? Because it is 7:30 and we need to bump through these last three so we can close in by 2 hours. Any other thoughts on public outreach and notification systems? Yes, Natalie.
I don't know if I count as public outreach, so if I can just be allowed to comment. And I'm staying neutral on topics that decisions will be made higher than me. But I will just say, as far as the police department goes, I would welcome any opportunity, besides people calling in, because we have a pretty good catch rate, so to say. If people call us and we get down there in time, we can enforce anything, whether it's people jumping off the pier, shoplifting. So I'm going to stay very neutral, but I would just say I would welcome any other mechanism to assist us, because we've got a pretty small area and we can be down at the beach pretty quickly. I would welcome any assistance and just better notifications for us, and we most certainly would write a ticket. So that's all I'm going to say is I would welcome any additional help where we can do probably a better job of enforcement than we do.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's move on to buoys. I did make a note that we were talking about a lighted buoy in the swim area. We also have swim area delineation buoys, and the big one I was an integral part of was bringing the weather buoy to South Haven, which gives us real-time data for wave conditions and temperatures. So are those adequate, or do we need something else? And like I said, we had talked about the possibility of a lighted buoy in the swim area.
Tim, I missed the first part. Are you talking about the sensor on the pier or the buoy out there?
The buoy out in 70 foot of water.
To be honest, I use the pier sensor for non-NOAA's site for everything because it gives me 15-minute updates in wind.
Right.
The buoy's good, but the problem is it's pretty far out there. That's why I use Michigan Coast or MI Coast. Was it? No. State of Michigan website for temps.
Yeah, the other one's the UGLO site.
I'd like a clarification. What is the purpose of what you called the swim buoys? Because I've heard the buoys are there to, as signals to boats not to come closer. And that people then, a couple of the drownings recently were because people went out to those buoys thinking it was safe to swim that far. So, I mean, what is the purpose of those buoys? Is it to tell boats don't come closer? Or is it to tell swimmers, hey, you can make it out to these buoys safely?
The purpose of the swim area buoys is to designate a swim area where boats cannot enter. Boats are supposed to stay 100 feet away from the buoys. So really, we're trying to give very clear designation to where swimmers may be without any boats around that may hit them with a prop or anything like that. So it's supposed to be a safe area for swimmers to be where boats may not.
I would make one
Being
recommendation.
placed in
real
the
quick.
right locations then? Are they out too far?
We set
They
them
drift.
out. They drift, and then we do set them out because we're trying to create an area where boaters know not to come in. We don't want them coming in too close, so we do set them out. I think it's 8 feet of water is where we're setting them out at because we are trying to keep the boats away. There is a real danger when boats are coming too close to swimmers.
I understand that.
Katie,
When
I-
they drift, do they get put back where they should be?
They do, and now that we have a boat with the city, we have a 16-foot whaler, we have the opportunity to go and reset them a lot quicker than we have in the past.
Thank you.
Randy?
Didn't we discuss the last meeting, maybe moving them farther away from the pier?
We have now, we're trying to keep setting, and these buoys actually move a lot more than most, but we have buoys that designate the 50 feet away from the pier. That's the no swim zone. And those buoys move quite a bit, and we have to get them anchored quite a lot. We have to
Well, but what I'm wondering, Katie, is would we be better to go 75 or 100 feet away from the pier? To try to stay that much farther away from that structural current?
You mean, so moving them not just 50 feet, but going 100 feet away from the pier?
Yeah, yep. You know, if they're still getting in trouble where those buoys are now, maybe the buoys are still too close.
What information did we use to determine that 50 feet was an appropriate space? Is there maybe some new information on different distances? Are other beaches setting them at 50 feet as well? Just curious.
From the pier, 50 feet from the pier?
Yeah.
I thought it was Army Corps of Engineers required it to be that you had to be 50 feet away from the pier. You couldn't enter the water 50 feet from the pier. At least that's what we were told I was told when kiteboarding by the Marine Sheriff one time. He's like, you can't go that close. I'm like, oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I always wondered where we got that 50 feet. That's.
Yeah, and I'd like to know how long it takes a rescuer to get to them too. Is that something that's being factored in for Shays and their response time? Because as you guys all know, the responders, Mr. Van Wynen, et cetera, when you're dealing with water and drowning, this is all about time. So we need to know how much time it takes somebody to get out for a rescue at that furthest point.
Yeah.
And Kate, along with that, how often are those being moved back into place? Because I know, again, speaking from experience, they would move sometimes, every day, every morning, we're having to go out and remove them. If it was a rough water or, just a storm that came in, there were several times a week sometimes that we were repositioning those. Do you know how often they get repositioned or fixed?
I don't know how often. Obviously, we can't go out there until the water's calmed down. But now that we have our own vessel, and we don't have to wait for another person to get their own boat in the water. We have a lot more ability to go out and adjust them as often as needed whenever staff has the time and the water's clear and the water is calm enough for us to get out there.
Roger.
One of the things I did earlier this week, and I'll tell you why it gets up the buoys, is I went down and looked at the Blue Stairs, and the last time we had high water, the Blue Stairs was closed because it was almost washed away. It was getting ready to collapse. And which tells me the current around there is different than what it was back in the late 80s. Something's got to change because there's still sand there. I'm just wondering that whenever they came up with that 50-foot rule, if it was good then, but is it still good now? Should it be farther away?
Is it a requirement to have buoys in a designated swim area?
If you want to keep boats out, it is. I was also a Van Buren County Sheriff's deputy. This is Sean. And yeah, if you want to keep boats out, they need to be there.
No, I'm saying if you're a municipality and you have a swim area, is it a absolute requirement that you have to furnish in buoys in a designated swim area?
Right. No, I understand your question. I don't know that specific answer, but I'm answering that if I can tell you for sure, if you're trying to keep the swim area separate from boats, they need to be there. There's no way for boaters. The boaters could come right in, I guess is what I'm saying.
I agree. I agree. I was just curious if it was a actual requirement though.
Oh,
I don't know. I don't know if we have it in our ordinance that the buoy swim area will be designated by buoys. I'd have to go and look at our specific ordinance. I do know that we do have watercraft lanes on the southern end of the South Beach and the northern end of the North Beach. And we try to designate those buoys as well.
Yeah. So I point that out to you, Chris, because that might be some language cleanup that needs to happen. Okay.
Looks like
So.
we have a hand raised. Do you want me to?
Oh, yeah, go ahead. But this one will have to identify themselves.
Okay. Okay, I will ask resident to go ahead and unmute. And if you can state your name.
Yes, Mary Hasley, 726 North Shore Drive. Sorry. So I had a couple questions, comments, situation. So I understand the buoys along the pier are for swimming, but the buoys for the boat seem, and I think someone already made this point, but I just want to make sure it's clarified and or stressed, depending on how it needs to be done. So the buoys for the boat are, so the comment was that the buoys provide a safe swimming area. Was that, it's not clear whether that comment was for just the buoys for the pier or all the buoys. And if that statement was for all the buoys, it sounds like the buoys for the boat may be out too far. So you need two sets of buoys. And I guess there's a little bit of concern with them drifting and how quickly they drift and how promptly they're readjusted to ensure a safe swim area. Does that make sense?
So if I'm hearing you right, you're just, you kind of broke up a little bit too. So the buoys that prohibit the swimming 50 feet of the pier may be confused with the buoys that are protecting the swim area from, or delineating the swim area from the boats. Is that what you're saying?
Well, so do all the buoys along, along the canal and for the boats, is that whole area considered safe swim area? Because it sounded like the buoys for the boats were out probably further than they should be for swimmers, especially if someone swam out there, because I think the comment was someone drowned because they swam out to the boat buoys thinking it was a safe swimming area. And then I thought the reply was, well, those are for the boats. So it did not seem like the buoys for the boats were delineating a safe swimming area, but telling the boats stay out of here.
It's one set of buoys for boats. It's both delineating for a swim area and also a no entry area for the boats.
Okay,
Are
so
the
all the
buoys-
buoys do designate a safe swim area.
Yes.
And who identifies, so I understand the Corps of Engineers did the buoys for the pier. Who identifies the length for going out for the boat buoys?
That's done by staff, and we set them out to give a good distance away from where a swim area, where the swim area is. We've set them at 8 feet because we really are trying to discourage boats from getting close to the swim area. Many boats like to go as far in, many boats like to go in as far as they can. So we set them out a little bit farther than you'd think, because we are trying to prohibit and discourage boats from driving or parking as close as they can. Many like to put their anchor down and let it swim, and then let the boat drift into the swim area when it should be standing at least 100 feet away. So we are trying to show that this is a protected area. And when I say protected, this is a designated for swimmers only area. When I say it's a safe area for swimmers, it is supposed to be safe for swimming. It's just to be used for swimmers, not for boaters. Does that make sense?
It does, but because someone had drowned swimming out there, I just wonder if it's too far, so that people think that potentially it's not as deep, they can stand up, they get out too far, kind of like an attractive nuisance type situation.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. So any other ideas on buoys before we move to the next topic?
Nope,
Just a quick thought real quick.
Yeah.
What about, and I know this is off, it is buoys. I'm thinking the idea from Australia, they use it for netting for sharks to come inside. Have we thought about netting between the buoys? Or is there a reason we don't put a rope between the buoys? I'm guessing.
Probably because they move on occasion.
Yeah, I just wonder if they're tethered together, would they stay closer to together? And if someone is out that far, it is something to grab onto.
I'm
I don't think
sure. I'm sure the anchors are a big part of that too. Probably the ones you're referring to really have some massive anchorage where they can string that net.
In fact, I think that those are probably tethered actually to to the ground in the water. Actually, now I think about it, so
yeah.
It looks like we have another hand raised. I'll go ahead and ask Faith to unmute.
Okay.
Hello, this is Faith. Just a suggestion about buoys. It's something that I used when I was head lifeguard, and a few other beaches on the lakes use it too. They have a double line of buoys. So, and all these systems are not perfect, but it did seem to work a little bit better. I had made an inner area of buoys of one color that designated where swimmers could go. And then there's a second further outline of buoys for boats, to keep boats out. And there's a number of different kinds of stickers you can order for what it says on the buoy. So the buoy could say, the inner buoys can say swimming area, and the outer ones can say no wake or no boats. That might help, but just everything is a little bit difficult at the beach when there's a really busy day. People don't 100% are not going to 100% understand what this buoy is for and what that buoy is for, just because people just aren't completely educated on beach going. What else is I gonna say? Yeah, and of course, having buoys in a safer area, it's not gonna, you still probably have an incident where someone ends up hanging on the buoy and can't get themselves back in. Hopefully not, but it does just seem to, it is kind of an effective nuisance, but it's also prevents a lot of dangerous situations, maybe more than it causes. And yeah, definitely it's great that you have buoys that keep the boats away from the people. like a couple years ago, somebody died they were hit by a jet ski that was zooming around too close. That was in Michigan City. So it's good to have the buoys. So that's my suggestion. Thanks.
Okay, double line of buoys. Very good.
Yeah,
Thank
still you'll still have to move around. So
Yep, I get it. Excellent.
While we're on buoys, can I just then ask the question, is 8 feet too deep? If we're using one set of buoys for swimmers, do we maybe put the buoy at 6 feet? Would that be something to think about?
Right.
Hey,
are you asking me?
guys,
Bob?
one thing real quick on the 2 sets of buoys.
Yes.
If we do 2 sets of buoys, we created a boat lane. Keep that in mind.
Okay, I got it.
Tim,
Yes.
I was wondering, everybody's worried about the swim deal. Maybe we should just have waiting and let them only go out to 5 foot.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what the discussion was with that double buoy line.
So move the buoys in to 5 foot and then have another one out there wherever you don't want the boats to come in at 8 foot, 10 foot. Is that what these people are thinking?
Maybe. I don't know yet. We'll see.
Looks like we have another hand raised. We've got Pam Ford. I'll go ahead and ask her to unmute.
Okay, and this will be because we need to get moving on to the last 2 items because it's 7:51.
Okay, go ahead, Pam. Got 3 minutes.
All I was going to point out was that your MDNR revocable permit for buoy and or beacons will specify what you can and cannot do with some of the conversations you're having around buoys.
So you're saying we need to do some homework on the buoy laws?
That would be exactly what I was saying. Thanks, Tim.
Okay.
Thank you, Pam.
All right. So buoys, we'll leave it there for now. Next up is beach cleaning. Any thoughts on that? It's done what? Every morning?
They do a great job.
Yeah. Okay, so everything's good there? Although, like I said last time, with the erosion that's happening, we may not have the luxury of bulldozing down the dunes and having a flat beach going forward for a little while. I don't know. We'll see how things play out. But environmentally, we might have to let the dunes start building themselves just to protect the parking lot.
Quick note, we get a lot more citizen involvement in cleaning the beaches than I realized until I started working from home. Every morning I take at least a couple of conference calls from the beach in my car. And there's at least 1 or 2 gentlemen that I have seen out there every single day picking trash. So that's, I mean, not necessarily germane to the discussion on if we need to add additional measures, but I think that's a nice call out that we get so much citizen involvement in that. And I know after 4th of July and stuff like that, we get a lot of people down there helping clean the beaches as well.
Our whole street department, park department spoils us with how they service the community with the pickup of trash and the beach cleaning. And, you know, I just agree with you. A tip of the hat to them.
Yeah, the city spends quite a bit of money on beach cleaning each year. It's a line item in the budget, I do believe.
Yep.
All right, so beach cleaning's okay. Next up's beach boundaries. I think our north-south boundaries are pretty well established. It's the east-west ones that are changing. But I don't know if there's any further thought on beach boundaries.
We had the question last time of what are we talking about when we talk about beach safety areas? I know when we look at the South Beach, we go from the pier all the way down to the city's property line. just to the north of 742 Monroe Boulevard. So that's quite a bit of beach area there. And then as we go to the North Beach, obviously we have from the pier going to the north, and then there is actually a fence line here that designates private property. And I believe there's an opening that, well, used to be a lot farther away from the water, but is a lot closer now. And then to each of the other areas, we have our beach areas. Many of these, as you go north, there will be signs that will be sunk into the ground that shows you are now leaving the public beach. We're trying to put those signs out. But for the South Beach, I think most of the other signs, I'm sorry, all the other bathing beaches are of North Beach. That would be Woodman, Packard, Dykeman, Oak Street.
Mm-hmm. I don't think there's much we can do with beach boundaries. They're pretty well established. Other than, I guess I would circle back to signage if we need to delineate where those boundary areas are from public to private. But I think the private have pretty well let everybody know.
We have, and we've had some requests like in the Newcomb area where as the beach has basically been minimized quite drastically, we've been asked to put out signs just saying, hey, you are now leaving the public beach, be cognizant that everything that, you know, that there's private property. But it doesn't say don't walk on the beach, it just says that you may be on private property.
Is there something maybe that we should put out though, saying where they can walk? I mean, is it still the high water line? I don't know. I know there's lawsuits involved and.
It is the high water mark. Okay. And there's many different people who would tell you many different definitions of what that is.
Yeah. Take a
And
bucket,
actually,
pour it across.
planning commission's going through that one right now. So keep your eye on that program.
Were we really talking about the beach boundaries as far as what the city owned, or were we really talking about the swim areas?
This came out of the first meeting. I think it might have been Tom Renner's suggestion of talking about where the beach boundaries are. I think maybe it goes to I wasn't sure if it meant like South Beach, which is a pretty long beach, and maybe some people aren't sure where is the public area.
Oh, okay.
Maybe am I right, Tom, or was there something else you remember?
I just was focusing, I guess, on the South Beach, and I'm moving into the lifeguard area. Maybe I shouldn't, but are we going to try to protect all of the South Beach, or is there going to be a point where we're not going to protect part of what is the South Beach, the blue stairs and that sort of thing? So I think at some point, if a decision is made relative to the lifeguards, a point will be where are they going to be what area are they going to be working?
I think we still got to get to that point to see.
Yep.
So basically what he's saying is, do we treat all beaches the same, or do some have special considerations as compared to others? So I guess we can kind of just leave it with that caveat right now till we get further down the road.
Yep.
Okay. I think that gets us through beach boundaries. Anything else for beach boundaries? All right. So what I'll do at this time is I'll entertain a motion that we postpone 5B, C, and D till our next meeting.
I'll second.
I can't make the motion.
Oh,
So,
sorry.
Don, you make the motion.
Yeah, sorry. I was actually going to suggest that, so I will make that motion that we postpone those just to give them due time and so everybody's well rested. So 5B, C, and D postponed until next meeting.
Okay, very good.
I'll
There's
second
support.
Chris Campbell.
Chris Campbell supports. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Kate, will you call the roll, please?
Sure. Chris Campbell,
Yes.
Pam Doherty,
Yes.
Tom Renner,
Yes.
Sean Russell,
Yes.
Tom Stegman,
Yes.
Randy Timmer,
Yes.
Randy Van Wynen.
Okay,
Okay.
that passes. Now we'll move on to item 6, public comment. Was there any additional public comment?
Looks like we have Dave Benjamin. I'm going to go
Okay.
ahead and get your hand unmuted.
And Nadia?
Am I there?
Yep, go ahead. I'm just going to lower your hand. Go ahead. You've got 3
Okay.
minutes.
Trying to figure out where to start. So one of the big problems, drowning. Gold standard solution is lifeguards. I know that you just tabled that to the next meeting. There was an analogy earlier about ingredients and a cake. And that analogy forgets the chef who uses the ingredients to bake the cake. For everything that you have discussed on this meeting, lifeguards are the chef. Okay, the lifeguard uses those ingredients, the beach signage, the flags, the public outreach, the buoy, the rescue equipment to keep people safe, to save lives. So the analogy of ingredients and a cake without a chef and then expecting the cake to bake itself doesn't hold well. And so again, for every question and concern you have about beach safety, lifeguards are the answer. But it seems like there's a huge resistance when lifeguards come up. We are running out of time if you are having any hope of having lifeguards for summer 2021. You really do need to start recruiting in February, in March, for a fresh program of new recruits. And at the pace you're going, with 5 weeks from the last meeting to this meeting, it seems very doubtful that you're going to even get close to it, which means another year of lag time. Unfortunately, every time there's a drowning in the Great Lakes, the number one person who the media calls is me. And they ask me, what could have been done to save this person's life? This isn't just a South Haven problem, it's many beaches' problem. The number one answer is always lifeguards. Lifeguards to operate the flags when the conditions change in real time. Lifeguards to recognize someone in trouble or someone about to get in trouble and to intervene. Lifeguards to go out with their rescue equipment to provide them flotation and bring them to shore. I cannot emphasize enough how time critical this is. Lifeguards are going to be the difference between life and death. And in all 3 drowning incidences you had last summer, lifeguards were the answer. And I just want to provide you guys, I'm only getting 3-minute bursts of conversation here. I'm willing to give you a lot more, but just to walk you through it. I mean, I'm the one who oftentimes am speaking with the family and friends of drowning victims face to face, explaining them what happened, how it could have been prevented, and it's heartbreaking. So I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Nadia?
Okay, let me get her unmuted.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
First, I'd like to say that I was actually the one that found one of the bodies off of North Pier with some of my friends over the summer, and that was pretty terrible. But anyway, that's part of the reason I'm at this meeting. I'm a graphic designer, and I just opened up a print shop, and I have some great ideas for like signage, stickers, even as far as t-shirts that you could put in shops, sort of advertising like safety, but in a way that people are actually going to look at it. That's something else I can talk with one of you one-on-one maybe with. what I would like to say actually is that I think Chris was talking about it earlier. Australia, I was there for a year traveling, and one thing that they use there that we should really start incorporating here soon is they use drones to monitor the beach. There's a camera. You can even, if you see a swimmer, you know, that you're not sure if they're in distress or not, you can even use the camera, take a look at them from above, monitor the conditions. Their drones have sirens. You know, if it's a red flag, get out of the water. There's a drone that flies over with a siren. They can even drop life preservers. There's a special kind of drone they have there that can go out and drop a life preserver to a person. You know, they can have a red flag waving behind them. And it would honestly take someone less trained than a lifeguard to do. Again, this is an idea that obviously couldn't be incorporated quickly, but it's something to think about for everyone in the future. And, you know, I'd be willing to do, you know, print anything at cost if it helped to raise money towards this cause. And that goes for anything we discussed, buoys, anything that will help with safety. If we need some fundraising material or other signage, I would like to do that at cost, offer my services as a designer and my print shop, because I am very passionate about this. And that's pretty much all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Nadia. I see one more hand up. It's Greg Field.
I'll go ahead and ask him to unmute.
Hey, thanks again, Kate. First of all, I want to say thank you for taking the effort and the time to talk about water safety. It's a huge issue. And I believe Nadia, thank you for your help at the beach. And I agree with you. Australia does a lot of things right, and I'm with Dave Benjamin. One thing that Australia does is they have lifeguards everywhere. It's part of the culture, and I look forward to that discussion. But I did want to say really quickly, along with Nadia, I would love to offer my resources. I work at Michigan State University, and I am in an arena of study where we specifically are working towards water safety education statewide in all schools, and also getting lifeguards to all state parks. And my area of study is water safety. And if you ever need research or have questions, I would love to be a resource for you all. And I really appreciate you allowing me to speak a few times. And I'm definitely passionate about this area. Hats off to you all for setting this meeting up and engaging in this topic again. And thanks for your time.
All right, thank you, Greg. And that's all public comment, right? No more hands up? No. Okay, have we received any additional correspondence?
We did receive some correspondence from Cam, which has been all distributed out to the group. I'll figure out a way that we can make that part of the packet, if that's what the committee would like. I know she attached a lot of resources, and I'm not sure how to get I'll see about getting the hyperlinks in the document that you'd like to have that done.
Okay. And that was all the correspondence then?
Yes.
Actually, there was one more. Was it Sean who sent some URL links the other day?
No, it wasn't me. I don't think I did.
Who was that?
I think that's what Kate was talking about, the information that I sent to her, both some PDFs and some URL links.
Okay. The one thing I had asked, I know the last meeting, somebody was supposed to look into it, was how COVID's affected lifeguarding, and if there were additional types of precautions that were having to be taken or thought about. So maybe that can come next meeting. If we can, I see Dave's got his hand up. If you have that, just send it in, and I'll get it to Kate will get it to the committee.
That was me, Tim, just so you know, that's Sean.
especially since the next meeting is lifeguards is the topic. All right. Number 8, next steps, next meeting. So we're going to keep going through this agenda. And the next meeting, when is that date fall into our schedule?
If we're looking at the fourth Thursday, that would be the 25th.
Okay. 25th, does that work for everybody?
I think it does. It's more than 2 weeks out, so I couldn't tell you, but.
Right.
Actually, Tim, this is Sean. Can I make a,
Yeah, Sean.
Tim, can you hear me? I'm not sure if mine's coming through. Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks.
I can
Can
hear
I,
you.
what do I need to do? Make a motion? Okay, got it. Do I need to make a motion to tighten up our schedule, or at least make the proposition to make meetings at least every 2 weeks, or how do I go about making that motion? So we
Yeah,
can
you
vote on it?
can, you can. make the
I won't be able
proposition.
to. I'm on too many committees.
I'm sorry, say again, I missed that.
I think he said he's got a really tight schedule. He's on a lot of committees, but he's on mute because he has some Paw Patrol going on in the background.
Okay, I understand that was Chris that said he's unable to do any more meetings any sooner.
That's correct.
Okay, roger that.
Yeah, I had 3 this week already.
Yeah.
Just quick thing. Oh, that's my daughter. Quick thing. Is it possible, because we're going to look at lifeguards the next meeting, maybe Kate, if we can find out why we got rid of lifeguards in the first place? I figured that might be good for that topic too.
I will get some research out to the group on what was the conversations at the city at that time. Yes.
And I don't remember, did we set a vice chair at the last meeting?
No.
No. And I bring that up for Sean because for me, I'm kind of like Chris. I've got a lot of meetings every week, and if you wanted to tighten it up, they probably have to have a vice chair to do that and enough support from the remaining members of this group to do so. And I don't know if they have that capability or not. So.
And I would recommend.
Yeah, I
that-
get you. No, I'd go ahead.
No, go ahead, Sean.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say, I'd still probably make the motion, but my intent is not to exclude anybody if it was to vote and pass. I mean, I love getting everybody's input, so I would tend to not even make the motion if you guys are telling me that your schedules don't allow it. I think it's critical that we move faster, I guess is my point.
Yep, I hear you. It's always too slow in government. But it is.
Yeah,
how it-
especially when this subject, when we're dealing with people drowning.
Well, because it's got to move out of here's your thing. Once we get through, it moves out of this committee, and at least it'll go to city council. I don't know if it'll have to bounce through any other boards and commissions, but then it has to go to city council, and then you're gonna have to have additional public comment. And I mean, it's a 2 or 3 step process beyond this.
Dog quite a bit of a couple months at least.
Yeah. So, and if we don't do our due diligence here and it comes back, then it's going to add even more time. So we really got to make sure we tighten this up. And when we get ready to make recommendations, they're kind of bulletproof. Otherwise, it'll get sent back. So anyway, that's my thought on it. Anything else? So February 25th will be the next meeting. And are there any additional committee member comments? And just raise your hand. I'll call on you rather than going through everybody. If you have anything else you want to say this
Yeah,
evening.
no, I'm good.
Okay.
I appreciate it, Tim.
I hear the Terminator. What's going on? Okay. Seeing no other committee member and staff comments this evening, I'll entertain a motion to, oh, Tom Renner?
Well, I was just gonna say, we're talking about beach safety and just a tip to Shays. They're doing a lot in the winter months too. On Saturday, they're gonna be doing their second cold water rescue training of the staff. So, these first responders are, from what my perception of them, are really working pretty hard to provide protective services to the community. And I was a little offended, Kat, by the one negativity statement that you offered or someone offered through your channel regarding Shays and the South Haven Police Department. These are uninformed people, because our police department and Shays are working pretty darn hard to serve the community in many ways, including the one that we're focused on. So I wanted to say that.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And if you actually look at the rules of engagement in the group, that's should be and has been shut down really fast. No, this is that group is not about disparaging the city or our first responders at all. It's about offering them additional support. So I try and get on top of that.
I appreciate that.
I'll make a motion to close.
Is there support?
I'll support it.
Then moved and supported to adjourn this meeting. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Chris Campbell,
Yes.
Pam Doherty,
Yes.
Tom Renner,
Yes?
Sean Russell,
Yes.
Tom Stegman,
Yes.
Randy Timmer.
His battery died.
Okay, Randy Van Wynen.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody, and keep looking into this, and we'll see you at our meeting on the 25th. Have a good night.
Thanks for your work, Tim. Appreciate it.